Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to offer this with Sati Center. I want to thank my teachers, Victoria Austin from San Francisco Zen Center, and then Gail Fronsdahl, Zen Center, and of course, Inside Meditation Center and Retreat Center. Yeah, thank you to you all for being here. I'd love to. Oh, my pronouns are she and they. I am a reverend, so Reverend Leon, you can call me, or now that Gil doesn't, in IMC, we don't use our ordained titles. You can call me Leon also. My pronouns are she and they, and I'm zooming in from Huchin territory or West Oakland. Yeah, if I'd love to hear your voices and of course, you can always pass. Oh, we should say that this is being recorded, and when Rob edits, he'll take out your faces, though your voice will stay on for the question or the, discussions. All right, so have that awareness. Okay, I'm gonna go to gallery view because I like to gallery view. All right. Let me tell you the format of today. We're here for 3 hours with a break in the middle, or somewhere in the middle, depending on discussion. The first part, we'll do what I consider acknowledging what is, or expressing, or being with the quivering heart of the conditions of the time. And then the second half will what I call tending to the quivering heart, or we'll do some restorative practices. Yeah, so that's the general layout. Please take good care of yourselves. This is an interactive workshop, so there will be exercises and dyads. Oh, yeah, so related to that, if you do not want to be in dyads, to make Rob's job easier when we do breakout rooms, please rename yourself with an asterisk in front of your name. To do that, you hover over the 3 dots in the upper right of your screen, and then you click rename, and then you put an asterisk in front of it. All right? Okay, any question about format or how to do that? Of course, you can always direct it at Rob if you have a question, especially a tech one. All right. All right, then. I'd love to hear from you. So, how about I'm going to call on someone, just to call on someone, and then please tell us your name, your pronouns if you'd like. What's the issue that brought you here today? Since this is on skillful speech, maybe you could call it your speech challenge or your speech issue that brought you here. Yeah, and then you could pass it on to someone. Does that make sense? Any question about that? Okay, so I'm just going to call the next person in my rectangle there, or the rectangle, Yvonne. Please go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Yvonne. I use she, her pronouns. I'm on Coast Miwok Land in Stinson Beach, California. And, right speech. It's challenging. I think it's challenging for everyone. Um, I'd like to get better at mindful speaking. I've practiced a lot with mindful listening. I think I got that down. So that's part of why I'm here today.
Thank you, Yvonne. And if you could just pass it on to someone, keep it moving. You're muted. So.
I'll go with Kim.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Kim and I use she and her pronouns. I am from the Bay Area, but I moved to Portland, Oregon about 10 months ago. And I'm here because I support people with their relationships, like parents and children and couples. And I realized recently that I could use some more understanding around skills to share. So and also, of course, for myself, like I always learn through my own experience. So just looking forward to learning all kinds of good things today. Let's see, I will pass to Bernadette.
Okay, I just hit the ask. Oh, there
Yeah,
you go.
sorry
You're
about that. I
unmuted.
got a funny window. Always something funny. Good morning. I'm Bernadette, and I live in Bellingham, Washington, on sacred Nooksack land. Um, and I'm here to just continue to hear the teachings on right speech. I will be listening to the teachings until the day I die and still learning. So looking forward to it. And also just out of respect to you, Leanne, I need to leave early, so that will impact some of the groups, but I'll just bow out so you'll know I'm gone before you do the setup. So thank you.
Okay, pass it on before you mute yourself.
Just
Oh, okay, I'll go ahead and do it just because the muting thing. Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. She, her pronouns, kind of by a window, so I look a little bit ghosty. Um, and I am here in particular for the to work for the right speech piece, which I find really difficult in the moment to be really mindful of what I'm saying as I'm saying it. And so that's what brings me here today. Thank you. And I will pass it to Anne.
I think that's probably me. I'm Anne Marie. Um, yeah, I'm in Richmond, California. Um, I use she, her pronouns. I'm here partly because I have a perception of myself as not being articulate or not always being able to articulate my feelings and thoughts clearly. I'm also a teacher, an art teacher, an outdoor teacher for children and families. And all kinds of issues come up as, you know, with young children. And I just want to be present with them to help them navigate their differences. They're coming into conflict at times. So, yeah, wanting to help them. Thank you.
Can you pass it on? Now you're mute, though. Or do I? You're mute if you're speaking.
For some reason, I am not seeing gallery, but Emma, I was able to see the participants' names. Is Emma there?
Hello. Yes. Thank you, Anne Marie. I'm Emma. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Santa Cruz, California, and I um I think I was just really called by I think the first couple of sentences of the description of the event, and I also resonate with what Anne Marie just said about not feeling like I'm able to articulate my thoughts very well. Um, I guess I could say all the above, so that's not super helpful. Um, but I definitely feel like talking to people with very differing um, values than myself is really challenging. And um, I've learned a lot from practice, and I still have a lot to learn. So thank you. And I will call on Ines.
Hi, I'm Inez. I pronounce she and her. I'm participating from New Jersey. Um, I I I decided to take this talk because I need to learn more about how to deal with my speech. Thank you.
And Ness, are you able to pass it on? Can you see other?
Let me see if I can see it. No, I can't.
Okay, so I'm gonna call for on someone for you. Shinsen.
Good morning, everyone. Excuse me, I have a slight cold or something today. Um, I'm I go by pronouns of she, they. I'm in Ramatush land, and I'm here today to also have our trouble articulating sometime, but I'm, in addition to learning more or practicing more with right speech, I'd like to do right listening, because that's a good part of it. So I look forward to the day. And I'll pass to, has anybody not gotten? Leanne, Reverend Leanne.
Is it Hanot? No, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce. Shinsen, please mute.
This is Hanoch.
Yeah.
You see my name written in two languages. I'm from Israel. I've been participating in an NBC courses lately, and when I saw this invitation, I thought, wow, it's just on time. Excuse me for broken language. It's not my mother tongue, but I'll do my best.
Thank you. You're doing great. Can you see others to pass it on?
I see on the screen only five photos. I'm not sure who is the
Okay,
next one.
sure, I'll just call in someone then. Paranaz, do you want to speak today?
Hi everyone, it's Paranas Shide joining from Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Really happy to be here. I like to have fun, and it's a 3-hour slot, so I just want to really know that I may have to leave early. But yeah, I think just English as a second language was just fun to practice with. And I remember like being at the library and talking to friends, speaking like with our second language. I think English is kind of our second language, and it's fun to practice with. And I am going to pass to Anne.
Okay, Anne Marie's gone. The person on the phone, do you want to speak? Some phones people can speak and sometimes they can't. Okay, I'll take that as a no. All right. All right. Just make sure we haven't missed anyone. Yes. Okay. Great. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're all here to practice. It sounds like I will say that there are many ways to come into this course. I was trying to figure out a way in to present it, and I was thinking because most days I go down the street, and for those who know Oakland, West Oakland, I walk down Mandela Parkway, which it's this for those who don't know Oakland. I'm like in the city, and it's a city park of sort where there's a wide paved area for walking, and it meanders through some grass and bushes that are flowering. And it's probably like a 3 mile, trek, maybe more like two because I do the loop. And so I was thinking it's a bit like that because when I go walking on there, skillful speech. Like I like to say about sitting, we all know how to sit, but there is a craft to the sitting with a purpose, or for this in this case, speaking with a purpose of being skillful. Related to that, I want to say that. So yes, we're going to be talking about it in the context of the Eightfold Path, and I do have a book called "Home Is Here." Around the Eightfold Path, more specifically about how to work with anti-racism. That came out a couple years ago. And it's actually a restorative model, which I'm going to say more, but just to say that we're framing this in the Eightfold Path. So it is true that in the Eightfold Path, the Samma is the word that goes before all the Eightfold Path factors. And in the past it's been translated as right. I know that Thanissaro Bhikkhu, I heard him once say in the suttas, the right as in if you go to milk a cow, you wouldn't pull on the tail. So the right place is to pull on the udder, right, if you want to get milk. So right here is more appropriate. Not right so much as right as incorrect, but maybe to take it off a bit from the right and wrong that we often find that dichotomy. I like to use skillful because for me it does, and the teaching gives us skillful means on how to do it. So there's a appropriate way or some parameters on how to do it, and then skillful also implies one has to practice it to become more skillful. So so I was thinking, you're like, how does this relate to her walk? Okay, so I was thinking, as I go down this, I don't know why, but certain section of the grass area, there's like a 6-inch kind of ribbon that goes around. I don't know why they have it, but when I go walking, oftentimes I walk on that because I want to practice my balance. And even though it's just 6 inches, and maybe the drop off is like this much, right? It doesn't look hard, but inevitably, I don't know, a 20-foot length, I'm often just have to find my balance in that. Sometimes because there's some weed that's grown over, or I have to step over a stick or something. So we go through here, and it sounds like everyone, for sure, for people who sign up, and I thank you for wanting to practice with this. And so for me, what today is, we all know the value of skillful speech. Right now, it's at least as I see it in the United States and a lot of the world, is really divisive, harmful speech that's going on. And so it's something that we all do all the time. And yet, at times, we do need to concentrate and really focus our practice. So as doing is when we decide to go along that 6-inch so that we can just have more experience of where and how we get thrown off, so to speak, right? Not in a bad way, just how do we find balance again? So that's kind of the intention of today. All right. So having said that, I also want to find out, is everyone a meditator, or when I give we will have meditation, but do I need to give a little more specific? Raise your hand if you need more specific I'm going to give guided meditation on the Brahma Viharas for the most part, but if you need more meditative craft instruction, raise your hand if that's true. Okay, great. All right. So unless you have a question about things so far, we're going to go into a meditation. All right. So I'm going to ring the bell. We'll do 1 to start and 3 to end. All right, here we go. This is a 15-20 minute meditation. All right, as you're all practitioners, I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes before I guide you in upekkha, or equanimity meditation. Do note that the body is always present. So in the first foundation of mindfulness, it's awareness of the body in the body. And the first two, let's focus a lot, is either on the posture, which in Soto Zen we start with. So just the body as it sits or as it stands. Where do you feel supported? Or if the breath, which is more in the insight tradition as a beginning. Perhaps where do you feel the wind of the inhale or the exhale? And really just on both, what is easy to know, both as where the mind anchors itself and the sensations. So sensing the weight of the body, say I'm in a chair on the sitting bones and on my feet. Or the wind at the back of my left nostril as I inhale. All right, upekkha, meditation in the Brahma Viharas. It's often translated as equanimity. And classically, in the Brahma Viharas, equanimity here is the understanding of karma, or the broader sense of accountability. So if we remember the bigger picture, so to speak, or we hold that in the midst of how we view things, or as we view things, and again, the word upekkha often literally translated as in the midst of. So where is it that we find the balance, or the, I like to say harmonizing, because that has more nuance, in the midst of difficulties, right? So I've been trying it on not a scholar, so this is not a translation, but I like to try it on as resilience. Upeka as resilience. So this meditation is for oneself and for all. All right, so we'll start out with yourself. Visualize yourself in any way that can receive these phrases, which I'll offer. You can repeat them silently to yourself, or you can say them quietly out loud if you want in your own space. And what's important here is the ability to let it absorb, and that I like to say you strengthen your confidence in these qualities. Not so much whether they're right or wrong. So what aspect, as I offer the phrase, resonates for you, and just let it in. As true and possible, if only for a moment, all right? All right, visualizing yourself as you are now, or old or young, or I like to say, perhaps as an ocean that's vast and wide, or a gentle breeze that's everywhere. I am the nature of flexibility as I meet the comings and goings of my life. I am the nature of flexibility as I meet the comings and goings of my life. And feel free at any time during these Brahma Viharas meditation to move if you need to. This is not about pushing through. It really is about absorption, allowing for it to be easy, to be known fully in body, heart, and mind. Next, joys and sorrows are a natural part of my life, and I am open and able to receive. Joys and sorrows are a natural part of my life, and I am open and able to receive. Let me access clarity of heart and mind to meet the conditions of my life as it is. Let me access clarity of heart and mind to meet the conditions of my life as it is. May I know that resilience is of my nature all the days of my life. May I know that resilience is of my nature all the days of my life. And then next inhale, connect with how you know the qualities in these phrases of resilience, of clarity of heart and mind, of the flexibility, of being open and able to receive. Now, any one of these, or just a sense of them, doesn't have to be the words or the concepts or the ideas. Just how are they true and possible? the phrases in, let the qualities permeate. And then rest in the knowing, the full body of heart and mind, knowing. Now visualize all beings, none left out. For many, this is a time in which a sense of radiating out. Or again, I like to think of a breeze or a light rain for others. For some, touching your heart space as you're doing this is useful. May all beings access flexibility within the comings and goings of their lives. Accessing flexibilities with the comings and goings. May every one of us be able to harmonize our joys and sorrows as they come and go. May every one of us be able to harmonize our joys and sorrows as they come and go. Let clarity of heart and mind be our guide in every situation, in service of non-harming. Let clarity of heart and mind be our guide in every situation, in service of non-harming. May the realization of our strength, rest, and resilience be possible for every one of us all the days of our lives. May the realization that our strength, rest, and resilience be possible for every one of us all the days of our lives. On the next inhale, let yourself connect to how you know these qualities as true and possible. And on the exhale, feel these truths inside, then extend them outwardly. And as at least 13 people are doing this meditation, sending it out to all beings, feel like coming back to you, like resonance. And then send it out again as a back and forth, supporting us all. And I'm going to offer us about 5 more minutes here to just rest in this. If a phrase come up for you and you want to fill it in yourself and or send it out, feel free. Or again, just rest in the results of this practice. All right, I'll be inviting the bell. Again, feel the result of your practice in body, heart, and mind. And perhaps if there is one place that you really feel the truth, or you can easily access the settledness that comes from resilience, flexibility. Really focus on that and know that that's a place in your body that you can return to at any point. And give you a sense of groundedness in the midst of events, either internal or external. Thank you. All right. Any question about the meditation? Okay. Okay, Bernadette, you're unmuted, so then Yvonne.
The wording is beautiful. Did you write the words? They're really beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yes, and I have a handout for you all at the end that includes this.
Extraordinary.
Oh,
I love the
thank you.
Brahma Viharas. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I worked with Gil on some of this for my book back in, 2021, 22. Yeah.
Thank you so
Yvonne?
much.
Yeah, sure.
That was wonderful. At the end, I found that the concepts were very prevalent. Resilience, flexibility, clarity, wisdom. And so I was able to access some of the feeling in the heart at the end. I felt it here. But that was what I noticed. The words kind of dominated. But then at the end, I felt that warmth. I know now that where it is to access. I don't know, but the concepts, I guess that's part of the phrases. No?
Oh, yeah, certainly. And, we live in concepts. There's not a problem. Meditation helps us to feel it and know it. And I'm going to talk about that a bit as I start talking about the Eightfold Path. But let me see if there are any other comments or questions about the meditation itself before I go into the teachings here.
I would like to say thank you very much. Even though I'm used to being led by meditation in Hebrew, and your words really penetrate my heart, and I feel overwhelmed. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, the Brahma Viharas are, I'll talk to it when we talk about metta, but yeah, they're sometimes very hard to access. They are very, the Buddha taught them as easeful practices. And sometimes we take ease for granted. And so, yeah, part of what we're doing today is to, especially later in the skillful speech part, is to really feel them some more. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to go into the teachings now. All right. So, I'm just going to give a brief overview of the Eightfold Path and then a skillful speech. So, I will say that I'm teaching this off of my book, Home is Here, Practicing Anti-Racism with an Eightfold Path, or Engage for Noble Truths. And I wanted to give some context for that. So in 2017, I was at a Gen X teacher conference, Generation X, and I was I had another round of sexual misconduct in some Buddhist communities. So they brought in the organizers the right use of power. Do people know the right use of power? Yeah, it's a model by Cedar Barstow, and I love it. And I mention it some in my book. And what Cedar Barstow, I'll just give it because you're all going to go, what is that? What is that? But I'm not going to talk about it, of course. But is that in every situation, there's a power differential. So there's a right use for it, and skillful and not skillful, or wholesome and not wholesome. So knowing and being aware of power and their context is important. And of course, when we talk about that, like in terms of intersectionality, then power can shift in a moment, right? Like for instance, in the system of racism, as a Asian American, I'm in the down power. And in the oppression of sexism, I'm also in the down power. However, right now, I'm in the up power because I'm the teacher. I got the mic and I got the authority that comes with the role of teacher. So that's just broad. I highly recommend looking into it. And I left there thinking, gosh, I've been involved in Buddhist communities for a long time, and when there's any issues, then we have some training, and something is always brought in, like nonviolent communication, also another wonderful modality. And I kept going, but what about Buddhism? What about, because that's where I go when I'm looking for some support. And so I dared to frame the Four Noble Truths as a restorative model. And I was funded by the Hamera Foundation, including all the way through the book, too. So for, I don't know, 5-6 years. So, and I worked with Gil, as I mentioned, on really kind of, just talking with him a lot about it. So in the, so as a restorative model, I want to say that there are 3 aspects to healing or to a restorative sense of things. And I think part of the reason I'm talking about that in today's workshop context is, of course, right now, to me, there's a lot of traumatic events happening right now. There's a lot of difficulties. There's a lot of events that are just shaking our sense of what is the world as we know it. What are ways in which our social agreements seem to be in question. And so I think the impact on us is strong. So 3 things are needed to really address issues or challenges, especially a traumatic one or ones that are very impactful. And one is to acknowledge what is. It really goes with the first noble truth, right? In life, there is suffering. That's the classic, right? Not life is suffering, but in life there is suffering. In the engage Four Noble Truth version, that would be harm and harming are present. So if we think about it, to have restoration, we have to agree on what the problem is. So that's where the hardest work is, right? Just as if we're going to address something in a way that we can shift it, change it, heal it, so much of the work as mediators, so right, not meditators, but mediators, is to help parties agree on what the issue is. What is the cause of harm? Excuse me. What is the harm? What is the right? Before we can go restoring, we have to agree on what that is. So acknowledging what that is, just as practice-wise, we have to know what needs addressing. That's part of a lot of mindfulness practices. What is exactly here? Then the second aspect is knowing what shifts are especially needed. So we'd say that, you could say that as a second noble truth, right? Classically, the second noble truth is what are the origins of dukkha, or suffering. And here I have it as understanding fully the causes and conditions for harm and harming. So very similar, but again, it's directed at the impact of dukkha, right? What are the causes and conditions for harm and harming? And then the third is learning how to put those shifts into practice. So it's not enough to acknowledge what it is. We need to know what might be ways to understand more fully what the causes and conditions are. And then we have to learn how to put those shifts into practice. And so that's the third and fourth noble truth, right? The third noble truth classically is there's an end, or the alleviation of dukkha is possible. In the engaged version, individual and collective agency for ending harm is possible. So for me, what is really useful there is the part that, oh yeah, I have agency, and we have agency. So really connect to that, because I know that part of what's difficult about healing and about shifting, and I know what's hard right now, is the sense of hopelessness or the sense of helplessness. And so the third noble truth really, which is really the good news of Buddhism, right? The end of suffering, or the alleviation of suffering, is possible. And then again, in the restorative or the engaged version, it's just very much, that's right, we have individual and collective agency for ending harm or the alleviation of harm, right? That's possible, holding that. And of course, in both the version, the Eightfold Path is the answer. That's the fourth noble truth. However, in the engaged version, I just frame it as the Eightfold Path empowers wholeness. So notice wholeness will come up a lot in the book and probably in my talk today, because part of the framing of restoration is that naming difficulties, naming dukkha, is a positive thing. As a activist, oftentimes I know, people think of us as the problem, but as an activist, no, when you voice things, you're saying, hey, we had certain agreements, hey, right? That everyone should have happiness, if everyone should have shelter, everyone should have a living wage. So if we really have those values, then we're going, hey, how come this is not happening, right? So it gives us a sense also of that the wholeness of either ourselves individually, because the impact of oppression or difficulties often fragments us. Like right now, we're in this really oppressive sense of that's very much dividing us and pointing us towards how, our values are not are not being supported anymore. And so us being able to say, no, this is how we stay connected. This is how we stay unified. Okay. Now, the Eightfold Path, well, there are 8 of them. They're broken into 3 sections. The wisdom section, what's called classically the ethical conduct, is the second, and then the meditative third. They're called thirds. And while there are 8, 2 go in the first, in the wisdom section. That's skillful. Again, I use skillful understanding or view, both are translation. And that is of the 4 noble truths and karma. So in the Buddhist framing, our view or understanding of the world, all right, is applying the 4 noble truths. And karma is, you could say, the context, right? Because of this, that happens. I like to call it the responsibility or accountability section. I'm not going to go into it a lot because it's a very layered subject. But another way to think about it is if you think about right now it's spring in California, so a lot of people are gardening, starting the gardens. And so when you go to, and I was head of Tassajara Gardens, that's a monastery of San Francisco Zen Center. So I know a little bit about gardening. And when you start to garden, you think, oh, I have vision of what my garden will be. But when you get to the dirt, you realize that there's a lot that came before, right? No dirt is pure. So present condition is not pure in the sense of like it's what you think it should be. It always comes with all the things, depending where you get the dirt. Tassajara, there's a position called the head monk, and that one of the person's role is to turn the compost, is to make the compost for us all. The other is to clean the toilets. So that's what the head person, right? The head student does, right? So when you start a garden, it comes from all the things that happened in the soil before. So that's like karma. Like everything, you don't inherit something, as you think it should be, or it's just you doing it. And also as you're gardening, you can do a lot, but the conditions of the surrounding impacts what happens, right? Tassajara, anyone been to Tassajara? Yeah. So it's in the middle of the Ventana wilderness. And, when I garden, we would set up, because it's in the forest. So bugs were there, birds would eat all the seeds and the starters. And there were like 3 times we had to plant them. And then we started to build all these structure about it. Wendy Johnson came once. She's like, you guys are like the queen. There was only 2 of us, a nun and I wasn't ordained then. A nun from Italy and I were doing it. And she's like, you guys are the queen of, the structures, right? But, right, how much sun, how much rain, and still bugs got in, right? Snakes, all sorts of animals got in. So that's like one way to understand karma, right? It's what comes from the past, and it's how conditions are always determine what is the result. And what you do now conditions the result later. What you plant, how you take care of the plants, how you take care of the seeds, of course, conditions later. Okay? All right. Okay, so, and then the second of the wisdom factor is skillful thinking. The translation is thinking, sankappa, or thoughts. However, it's true, and certainly I like to say in Buddhism, we say thoughts are never passive. So they're very purposeful. So motivation or intention is a better way of understanding the second of the Eightfold Path. Gil likes to say attitude. I like motivation because to me, motivation gives me the sense of what is my drive. Because your thinking drives you, right? Your thinking becomes beliefs, and your beliefs drive you. And you can really see this because the next classic section is what's called the ethical conduct, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So the wisdom part, your understanding of the world and your motivation drives you into the interactive part. This is why I like to call the next section compassionate connection or conduct, because it's the interactive part. Now notice speech has its own, which we're going to go into, but speech has its own because speech is so powerful. And for many of us, our thoughts drive us into our thinking, and our thinking is like our speech, right? Internal speech or external speech. So that's the place that it's most easily, so we want to really pay attention. And the words we use really impact people, doesn't it? As we well see, right? And so that's why it has its own category. And then the next is skillful action, which classically is broadly is the precepts. And then the a third of that is skillful livelihood. Yes, the Buddha did talk about jobs that don't kill, don't steal, all that. And also, it's very much about what is the quality of your living? What is the quality? What are the values and quality of your living? And so that, in some ways, takes us to the third section. It's called the meditative, which is skillful effort, skillful mindfulness, and skillful concentration. Now, I like the way that Gil talks about it, because Gil says, even though it's, classically put as a third, it's actually like the bridge. The meditative factor, when we are practicing meditation, and the meditation-like practices, chanting, we'll do some exercises that are based in the meditative kind of quality of heart and mind. It's actually it's the bridge. So in the meditative quality, what we're doing is we're going, as I'm meditating, am I living in accordance with my values, the wisdom, how I see the world, what conditions, what's motivating me? Am I acting it out into the ethical conduct or the compassionate conduct, right? Or, is my behavior in accordance with my value? So that's why meditation, yes, there's an aspect of being with things as they are, but really our practice is to actually have wholesome, right? We're practicing to both have wholesome body, heart, and mind, or to know or to access and to balance that out, right? Especially in the Theravada sense, the wisdom that you're really trying to get is the wisdom of understanding what is wholesome versus what's unwholesome. That's our big delusion, is we don't understand what is wholesome in the Theravada sense. Right? So, all right. So, this is why for me, in a lot of ways, we are focusing on this first aspect, and this is why practice is part of what we're doing. All right. Any questions so far before I just the broad overview? No, okay. I explained it so well. All right, you guys got it. Fantastic. Okay. All right. I'm going to start out by reading the beginning. So in this book, there's a little story. And yes, this is a focus on race, and I'll put in context in a bit here. Skillful speech. Shifting speech to wholeness. I am in a practice period, a 90-day meditation retreat at the convert Soto Zen Monastery, where I've been living for 3 years. I'm part of the Doan Rio, a selected group of senior practitioners who are in charge of organizing all the activities in the Zendo, or the meditation hall. This position involves tasks such as letting people know when to come to meditate and how to participate in ceremonies, leading chants, and leading the serving team during oryoki, Zen formal eating in the Zendo. A white male teacher is leading this practice period. As is part of the format of any Soto Zen intensive session, each practitioner goes to see the leader of the intensive for a formal dokusan, a Zen word for the one-on-one interview about your practice with the abbot of a temple. Meeting with the leader one time is mandatory, after which it's up to the discretion of the student or teacher to decide if more meetings are needed. The format for a dokusan I have been trained in thus far was to bring in a question to the teacher that was about a teaching point, one's practice, or how practice can support a life difficulty. On this occasion, being the first meeting with this person I didn't know, I didn't have a question for him, so I asked him if he had one for me. He did. I've been watching you. You go around looking glum a lot. What's going on? I answered, I am having a lot of body issues. Some of it is overwork as head gardener the past 2.5 years, but most of it is that I'm having a hard time with the racism that's happening here at the monastery. He answered, you need to not think about yourself so much. You should focus on taking care of others. I looked at him baffled. I had just started to share a pain that was a result of the impact of systemic oppression, and without having had any discussion with me, this is what he had as advice? I paused, then said, you don't even know me. How can you say that? As an Asian American woman, my whole life is thinking about other people. I've been taught to always put other people's needs first. And what does that have to do with my experiences of racism here anyway? Your practice as a doan is to take care of the Sangha, the community of practitioners, so you should be putting the Sangha needs first, he asserted. As he had completely ignored my point twice now, the subject of racism and its impact on me and thus my practice, I realized this was going to go nowhere, so I politely bowed out of the room. So, yes, this is focused on racism, but it's also about how, for me, when difficulty is happening, what is it that in part is difficult, right? When we have speech that doesn't connect. So for me, the abbot was his frame of what's important. He asserted that. And of course, having the up power to connect it to the right use of power, being abbot, being white, being male, he got to assert what it was. And so for me, when we have speech, so much of it is we have to relearn. We have to first examine, right? What are the ways we've been taught about speaking and speech? Who has the authority? Who do we give authority to? Who do we give agency over to? And by that, I don't mean it's a bad thing, mind you. At times we have to. When you go in to ask advice of a teacher, especially doing a retreat, you're giving them authority. How we use our authority is really important. Is it, in particular, the focus on skillful speech to me is two things. One, is it relational? Is it connecting? Remember, I call that whole section compassionate conduct. Is it contextual is the next thing. How do we know about relational stuff unless we understand context? So power differential is one context. The roles are contextual, right? And so this is where we're going to focus mostly as we talk about skillful speech. Is the aim connection or relational? And is the aim contextual? Do you take the context into account? Does that make sense? That's what we're going to practice. Because, in some ways the abbot was right. That's my role as a Dohan Rio. But he decided what was important there. And that goes into significant, which I'll talk about when we get there. All right. So the 4 factors in skillful speech that's important for us is it truthful? So I put it into TUGS, T-U-G-S. Truthful, that's pretty much what the teaching also says. Is it truthful? I want us to really think of truthfulness as layered and contextual in particular. Is it uplifting? Instead of speech that divides, is the motivation to bring forth positive, all right, or uplifting? Is the speech gentle instead of harsh and abusive. Harsh and abusive are in the suttas. Refrain from harsh and abusive. I've just put in a positive context. So is it gentle? And then S is, I put it as S for significant. The classic wording is it idle chatter or gossip? Okay, that's the overall, and now we're going to go into it. So T is for truthful. We most often think of truth as facts, right, and information. But really, it's contextual. It depends on what is happening. What is the role? What is the purpose? Now, for me, for today, this is my sense, is that many of us, what's difficult about when we think about speech is that often I know there are ways in which, for me, there's an issue that is perhaps embedded in why speech is difficult for me. That perhaps it's not the content. So as we practice, it's not that the content of what we say or hear or think isn't important, but with practice we start to understand the context of things and the processes of things much more, and that becomes much more important. Okay, I'm gonna say a bit more about that after we do an exercise. All right, so now we're going to go into dyads. Rob, are you there? Are you setting things up, or you already have, just so you have some sense that we're getting to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll talk some more while you're. Okay. All right. I would like you to go into dyads and do deep listening. So in deep listening, which my understanding came from Thich Nhat Hanh originally, and he actually talked about it in general as how when you listen to a Dharma talk, most often we don't really listen. We're taking in the information and then we're going, oh, I like it, I don't like it, I agree, I disagree. Oh, when they stop talking, I have some advice, or, oh yeah, I have a story just like that, right? So we're not deeply listening. So when you go into the dyad, one person will be silent and just give the gift of fully listening. Fully listening. This is not a reflective. You don't have to worry about, oh, am I remembering what they're saying? I'm going to say it back to them. Okay. Now, in deep listening, why it's called that, because listening is harder for most of us because of that, again, that sense of for processing, making up stuff. Now, however, I like to also call this speaking deeply. Similar to my story, many of us are conditioned to speak for the other person, to make them feel more comfortable, right? For instance, if people look like they're confused, I'm going to say a little bit more. If they look like they're bored or angry, maybe I'll throw in a joke, So I'm really talking for them, not for my truth. Not for my truth. So the speaker, you're each going to have 5 minutes to speak. Let's have the short hair people speak first. So during that time, you're going to speak about the topic, which I'm going to give you, and try to use the full time. You can say, I don't know, or you can pause, but really part of the exercise here is that we also tend to tell a story and we just loop it. You tell yourself the same story. It's a little bit like the soap opera of your mind, where you watch a soap opera. My mother used to watch Days of Our Lives, I think. But if you turn it on now, like they're different actors, but the storylines are very similar. There's an evil twin, somebody sleeping with somebody, right? So the story is very loopy. So part of this is the space for you to speak freely. One, you don't have to please anyone. Two, what else might come out as you practice just letting, can you, yeah, right? Just let it out. Speak from your truth. And I want to encourage you to speak from your truth that's not just the conceptual. Get back to what Yvonne brought up earlier, right? Not the idea. So I'm going to ask you to just say, so the prompt is, what is the speech issue that you're having difficulty with? What is the speech issue that you're having difficulty with? And the encouragement is only to say about that in 1 or 2 lines. Then the rest of the time, you're going to talk about what is that impact on you. I'll tell you that I think so much of what's difficult about speech interaction is that there's something in us, right? So this is where we attend. Remember I said 2 parts of this workshop today. One is we attend to ourselves. Is that I know that a lot of times, especially when I'm talking about outside things, I perseverate on the outside content because there's something in me that's having a hard time for me to be with. Often my sadness, to be perfectly honest, or my grief about what's happening. So this is an opportunity for you to talk about, you say, my sister and I just had a fight. It was about her car. And then you can keep on speaking, saying, oh, right now, as I'm saying that, I feel even just this is a fake story, but even then, my chest is heavy. My chest is heavy, and I feel sad, right? And then you could just say, my chest is heavy. I'm staying with the heaviness. I wanted to tell me something, but I'm just going to try really hard to stay with the sensation. Oh, and I could say, oh, look, I put my hand here because it hurts. So you just try to speak in a way that's about the present impact of the speech issue. Does that make sense? So this is a practice. There's no right or wrong. Your partner's just going to give you the gift of listening. They're not going to correct you. You don't have to please them. Okie dokie? Is that clear? All right. So 5 minutes, and then we'll do the timing for you, and then my voice. I just realized the broadcast really works. I'm going to, with my voice, just say, okay, it's the end for the first person. The first person speaking has short hair. Then we're going to have about 30 seconds of silence, so you can just absorb what you've said or what you've heard. Then I'll invite the next person, and I'll remind you the prompt, which is, what is your speech issue that you're dealing with now? Yes? Any question about the prompt or the information? Yeah. All right. Okay. Please share your process, or you can share your content if you like. Of course, not your partner's content. And then we'll have a break after this. So yeah, anything about the process, the truth, what's going on for you? Okay, Marianne. Good to see you, Marianne.
Hi, nice to see you
Hi.
too, Leanne.
Yeah.
I think we had a little misunderstanding of the instructions. So for the first part, my partner spoke and then decided we just decided to be silent. So we just kind of, and I love that about being in Buddhist groups. If you don't want to talk, you can just be silent. It's wonderful lack of social pressure. So we were silent, and then I saw like, oh, 5 minutes have gone by, so I should take my turn. So then I spoke, and it was helpful to kind of get off my chest this. It was kind of a minor incident, but something that had been bothering me, where I did not have right speech, and it just felt good to go over it and relieve me of the burden a little bit.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Or a question? Um, how did you feel it in your body or anything about that? Or the way you
And
held your body?
yeah, remembering that, a little bit of almost queasiness. It wasn't really a big deal, but when a little bit of self-disgust, like I should know better than to get on that train, that yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so
thank you.
queasiness.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Yvonne, I see your hand.
Go. It was a really great breakout group. And what I noticed, just one thing, is that when I was talking about the incident around which was challenged with right speech, I started to feel that ill will. That, or the impact of that situation, which was ongoing for a long time. I found a solution, which I have a question about. And so I noticed, I knew I was doing that. I noticed I remarked on it, like, and what you said about, can you get away from telling the same story? It was the same story that I've shared with other people, friends. And that was kind of took me aback. Like, how do I talk about this freshly? How can I talk about this without just the content that I've kind of that's been sort of rigidified? So it was very useful. Thank you. And thank you, Shinsen.
And may I ask the same question? Anything you want to share about the body impact or emotional impact?
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt very agitated when I was telling the story, that old story. I know I mentioned it. I said I'm starting to feel that ill will, but I felt it in the body. It was like full body agitation. And then later on, when I was talking about the growth that I have experienced in the area of right speech, and I have an online sangha every morning that practices relational mindfulness and how I've learned to listen. Then my body felt really happy and light, and I found that I was smiling. Um, so it's just to kind of it reinforces motivation. Like, let's feel like that, not that other way. Thank you for the exercise.
Sure. So when we can focus on the wholesome, we feel it in our body. Sure. Yeah. So there, what's called the six sense doors in Buddhism. Do people know about the six senses? So it's eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So that's in Buddhism. And yet most of us think this is the most important. But as an organism, we're mostly a sensing being. And so what happens to us, this is where we're going to feel it the most, both sensation wise and emotional, the response to the sensations. That's why for me, insight practice is so wonderful because as we practice more, we realize that so much of our practice is actually about the body. And not, we think we come to it to fix our mind, we think, or our emotions, but through our thoughts. But the more and more we practice, we realize it's so much about the we understand this much more in the West now. The connection between body and mind is so important. I mean, I have to admit, I go to IRC regularly since at least once a year since 2015, and I've started out my meditation practice actually at Spirit Rock in '96 or something like that. And about a few years ago, I was like, wow, it took me 20 years to realize, oh, ease of body comes before. I used to think if I'm mindful, I will have ease. But now I'm like, oh, right. Body ease will bring mindfulness more easily. And I really appreciate Gil, and I think a lot of it has to do with our Zen training because we're very focused on the body a lot. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Yeah. All right. Anyone else want to share your experience? All right, Emma.
I just have a short share, which is that it was very freeing to um, talk without trying to be understood. I feel like I am reflecting on how that's so that's such a theme in my life is like this internal battle of just like sharing what I feel, but then feeling really unseen when I don't feel when I'm not understood by who I'm talking to. And so it was I caught myself trying to like articulate better and then just being like, whatever, moving on in my head. And um, yeah, it was just really nice. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And I ask a follow-up question. What emotion did you feel when you found yourself thinking you have to make them understand before you say, okay, I don't have to do that? Did you notice an emotion with that
If this counts as
frustration?
an emotion, it was definitely just like exhaustion. Like I felt really tired. I guess frustration a little bit, but I think it's mostly just like, tired.
Yeah. I wonder if that, in some ways, then sometimes I know when an issue is chronic, sometimes I feel very tired, and perhaps some of it has to do with, and I'm thinking, of course, about like a conflict of speech, because I know I have a partner and the content might be different, but it feels like often we get stuck in the same thing, which is usually, I see it like this, she sees it like that, and we just keep trying to convince each other a point of view. And so, not that that's not important, I'm not saying that at all, but, and when we kind of settle in first, noticing what might need here, because not being seen and heard is a big thing for me too. And I know when I rest in that, if I can attend, so this is my other thing, how do we then attend? So, acknowledgement of what is. We're taught so much to acknowledge what's out there, or we're conditioned to acknowledge how things should be, And I know I'm not saying again that our values aren't important, and a lot of conflict happens when we're perseverating on what we think things should be, or how we should be, or how they should be. And if we just take a moment to just check in, one, what is the motivation of this interaction? Is it to connect? And in the end, how do you make up? How do you make up when you've had a fight with your partner? You find a way to connect. When they teach you, I'm a therapist too, right? When they teach you couple counseling, how to resolve conflict, you find a way to connect. Something light, something that you can both agree on. It could be content to help you connect, but often it's just something like someone reaches out and touches the other person's hand, or or a smile versus right? So if this is one way that we can understand how when speech is difficult, is there some way? And again, we also often taught to connect mean to make people agree with us. And I think as beings, so much of what we want to connect is some sense of visceral kind of connection or emotional kind of connection. And this is also why when you get to know groups of people that have been just a concept, so many studies have been when you know your neighbor that seems really different from you, when you know somebody that seems really different or you don't agree, again, you might still not agree, but when you have that heartfelt connection, when you are friendly, then it's easier. And friendly, friendly is for most of us a feeling. Sure, you might do things, have potlucks, or, clean the neighborhood together or whatever, but it's the friendliness that makes it easier for differences to be held, to hold more and more differences, isn't it? All right. Okay, I'm gonna close this off just so that we have some time for a break. And I'm behind, so would people be okay with a 6-minute break? I have 49 after, so we'll come back at 5 till whatever hour you're on. Okay, thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're gonna have a short meditation now, so be a good time for people coming back. So again, 1 bell to start, 3:10. All right, this is a short one, 10 minutes. I'm gonna be quiet for a minute here while you settle in. All right, we're gonna do metta and karuna, kindness and compassion meditation. We're just gonna do it for ourselves, so visualize yourself in any way that can receive. Or if it's difficult, and I think it can be difficult, easefulness and compassion might be hard to let in. I like to say I had a student that had a hard time, and then one time she could feel it in her pinky. So any part of you that can feel this, perfectly fine. May I be filled with kindness. Let me connect with a sense of wellness whenever I need it. May peace and ease be accessible to me here and now. Let me be happy. May I connect to safety and strength whenever it's needed. Let me be able to bring mercy and tenderness to my pains and sorrows. May I be able to forgive myself for past mistakes. Let me be able to connect to patience with myself and with others. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering all the days of my life. On your next inhale, you're going to connect with how you know that the quality of kindness, well-being, peace and ease, happiness, safety and strength, or safety and protection mercy and tenderness, forgiveness, patience, free from suffering and their causes. Any one of those qualities, just on the inhale, feel it. Again, very viscerally. Let's just absorb. On the inhale, let it in. On the exhale, feel the absorption. Not so much a doing as simply receiving, letting it in, letting it be sensed, known in a very visceral way. The whole body and mind. Just resting in the results of our practice. The qualities here uplift us or provide us with a sense of gentleness. All right, as I invite the bell, again, see if you can have a sense of one of these qualities or the feel of it to a very visceral sense in yourself so that you can access it at any time. Not so much a doing as a knowing. Deep in your bones, so to speak. All right, moving from the meditation, I'd like you to write down for yourself, right now just for yourself, you can write in chat if you want or on a piece of paper or something, what one of those qualities, one of the aspects of metta and karuna in the meditation that really resonated for you now. Was it kindness? Was it well-being? Peace and ease? Happiness? Safety and protection, or safety and strength? Mercy and tenderness? Forgiveness? Patience? free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Try to just trust what comes up. Okay, and for those who've done it, you still have some time, but also perhaps one of the ways that I framed it really resonated for you. Was it feeling like when I'm filled, may I be filled with kindness? Or is it let me connect with kindness? Or may I be able? Or let me be? By the way, as I've practiced with metta in particular in the late 90s when I practiced at Spirit Rock with the Women of Color group, one of the teachers assigned me metta. She really felt I needed it, especially safety and protection. And it was hard for me. And then with the years of doing it every day, multiple times a day, I've also really developed, for me, like I start to add let it, because may just feels like, please, may this be possible, whereas let feels like I can let it in, right? So for me, like that was helpful. Sometimes this meditation I even say, especially with I am happy. That was hard for a long time, right? Just as it is. All right. So we are moving into uplifting and gentle. So when I was at Spirit Rock, I did a 1 month, 2002, I think it was. And at the end, it was my first 1 month. And at the end, of course, they did some exercises to get us back into speaking, and into the world. And for 1 minute, we were paired with someone, or for a minute, one person talked and the other person. And I got this, those have been Spirit Rock. It's a big room, right? Like 80 some people in the room. So it was luckily, but anyway, I got somebody who I had not had any vipassana, vendetta, or love affair with, like a neutral person, right? And the person went first, and it was just literally a minute each. And I don't remember the prompt, but if there was one. And then it was my turn to speak, and I just burst out crying, because for me, I just really wanted to connect with the person. So for me, that was a moment which I just realized speech was about not what I needed to say, but this need to just connect with the person. So for me, this section of tugs is what I like to call the how. Notice truthful, for most of us, what is truthful? And then S is significant. What is significant? Whereas here, uplifting and gentle are qualities of how. And so for me, metta and karuna are practices that are really softening qualities. Of course, all the Brahma Vihara, Upekkha is pretty hard, because that's really about understanding you're responsible completely for your karma. And that's why it's often considered the foundation or the roof of the other three Brahma Viharas. And so this sense of how can we really let these qualities in? Now in uplifting, the classic framing is to refrain from speech that is divisive. So when we forget that speech is connecting, and of course what supports us to connect is really important, right? And in the book I talk about, more like factors, and I think it's, of course, useful, all that, of how the condition, if we know each other, but the quality, again, is really important. Now, then, of course, the issue is, how do we hold our commitment to it? Right? It's okay to practice metta, say the phrases, but are we willing to take it into action? Again, the meditative factors of the Eightfold Path supports us to say, oh, these are the qualities of how I want to live my life, and now am I committed to that? Right? So it takes practice. For me, metta is a way in which we can practice much more for ourselves. Of course, the classic framing is we do it for ourselves, and we do it for, classically the wording is a benefactor or mentor. Nowadays we like to say a good friend. So one in which is really easy to give those qualities to, and they will receive it easily, so there's no stickiness. Then the next is a neutral person. This one I like to say group. It just, neutral feels like it'd be group. Of course, any of those except self can be group. And then classically, the fourth category is the enemy. Isn't that interesting? But nowadays, most of us say a challenging person or a group of being. I myself have started to say a group or being challenged, because that helps me to say, just as I know when I'm challenged, it's much harder to be kind or to be gentle or to be... And then the last is all beings. And again, it's a hard one because technically it's without exception. Without exception. Of course, while the Buddha taught it to, all the Brahmavihara has easeful quality, our practice is to learn to strengthen it so that it becomes bigger and bigger. And that's part of the reasoning for the progression. And so this is why I like to say, knowing that it's true and possible, because also the practices are mostly for ourselves. They're not to fix things. And this is why we want to be careful when we go into categories such as challenging people, right? Not like, I'm here to fix you. If only you would just not bother me, and that's really why I want you to have ease, right? So what we really do is we're practicing knowing it for ourselves. I like to say, the four Brahmavihara are like the gym, and you go in and you pump this muscle, metta, right? So we already have it, but we want to increase it. And for those who've done any weight training, right, you want to lift just enough so that you start to, or do enough repetition that you have build muscles, but you don't want to overdo it and hurt yourself, right? So again, this speaks to how we don't want to push through, or it's not to make it something. It's just I'm strengthening my belief in this, that's true and possible. Because in Buddhism, part of the reason why we send it out is we think of it, to me it's like they've done a lot of research on prayer, that it really does have an effect. It might not hard to measure, but I don't know how the social people measure it, right? Scientists measure it, but it really is something that we want to give, and we need to give it freely, not with our own agenda. That's what makes the practice pure, right? You know, if you're going, so that you don't bug me, then you just back off and you want to be gentle, because what's really mostly what you're doing is you're strengthening it for yourself. You access it, you cultivate it, you strengthen it. And I think this is important because again, we all know how to speak, we all know how to walk, but when conditions are difficult, when the path is narrow, just 6 inches, the likelihood of being off balance increases. And so we want to have the strength. We want to be able to be skillful. Develop a core, you could say, so that balance is a little bit easier. So, right, metta, pumping that, karuna, right, maybe chest press for upekkha, right? So, right. Now for me, metta on one level, while it does go through the category, my experience, and I'm just sharing it with you, is metta feels very much more personal in some ways. The quality of happiness, more of a there when things are difficult. Compassion, classically when you do compassion meditation, you start with someone else. You don't start with yourself. And the reason for that is compassion is a harder practice. Compassion is a practice that's relational. Metta can just stay here. Sure, the practice whole thing is out, but to me it kind of is like a practice to really tenderize here. Or that's how it's been with me. Maybe because it was assigned to me as something to strengthen for myself so much. But when you talk about compassion, it's the wish and the commitment to alleviate suffering and the causes of suffering. Right? In Buddhism, compassion is very specific. It's to alleviate and end, to understand the causes of suffering and be end. No. So the second number two. So it's relational. Compassion needs to have the ability to reach out and support. And how do we do that? We do that by asking questions. We do that by saying, how can I be helpful? As many of us know, when we think our idea of helpful, well, that's useful. It's really much more wise and effective if we have some dialogue or interaction about how that might be. And as a social worker, or as philanthropy or whatever, it's not enough to just give your compassion or be it your resources, but asking community, asking another, what is it that works for them to alleviate their sense of what needs attending to. Here's from Gil. Because people sometimes confuse compassion with feelings of distress, it is helpful to clearly distinguish these two. Compassion doesn't make us victims of suffering, whereas feeling distress on another's behalf often does. Learning how to see the suffering of the world without taking it on personally is very important. When we take it personally, it is easy to become depressed or burdened. We can avoid taking it as a personal burden or obligation if we learn to feel empathy without it touching our own fears, attachments, and perhaps unresolved grief. And this is why, in part, why I had us really speak our truth about the speech issue that we're bringing in. To know at first what is here that's difficult about it, and then attend to that, right? Not just to know it, acknowledging and then learning, right? Learning what is it in me, so that I can have more of a sense of, when we say impersonal, that's not a bad thing. It just means I'm not putting my agenda on it. It's not self-referencing. And our practice is to notice when it's that, not to have it, mind you. We're humans. Oh, I see. That's my agenda. Can I put it down? Or how can I take care of what the need is if I keep on thinking this is what needs to happen? How do I take care of what is the need so that I can set down my agenda and be open to receive? In Buddhism, it says it's two wings of Buddhism, right? Wisdom is one wing, compassion is the other. So we need to strengthen both, right? Because if you just use wisdom, what happens? You fly in a circle this way. If you just use compassion, what happens? You fly in a circle that way. This is why having strength in both and having the discernment, the wisdom, to know where you're going and to know how to adjust. Oh, a little more compassion is useful here. Because sometimes you have to go left, and then sometimes a little wisdom because you got to go right. So it's not like, oh yeah, right? Discernment, wisdom is really important, and it doesn't go anywhere if you can't. And Gil also likes to say, well, but then you also have to let go, because if your talons are attached, then you can just flap all you want, but you don't fly anywhere, huh? So how can we let go of our ideas about, and for me, the qualities that are in metta and karuna, when I focus on this quality, what are my ideas about the quality, and then how do I really know it? And again, viscerally, emotionally, not just mentally. All right, and in Buddhism, compassion is one of those things we practice, and then it's the results of practice. Compassion can be a gauge for what is the quality of your practice or the maturity of your practice. Right? Most of the people I know who are very well practiced are very gentle, and they're uplifting in general. Right? So, what I want to do is an exercise I call Mad Liberation. Do you remember Mad Lib? Anyone ever did Mad Lib when you were young? Where you have a sentence and you just fill it in? Oh yeah, Mad Lib's just like, they give you a little story, but they have blanks. And then before you tell the story, you say, I need an adjective, and someone just gives you an adjective or a noun. And then you read the story, and it's very funny because it isn't quite. But you fill in the blank, basically. So this is my version of a repeated question, if you've done that exercise. So what I want you to do is to write down so the reason I had you write it down is this quality, right, in which resonated for you. You can change your mind now if you want, but you can use the one you wrote down. And then I want you to write it as you, because the person's going to say it to you. So in the repeated question, someone says, or my version here, it's not quite a question, a repeated mad liberation, right? Mad lib. Is you say a sentence and then the person just fills in the blank. For instance, what I'm hoping you can do is that, let's say wellness was the one that resonated for me. So when I go into a breakout with Yvonne, I'm going to have Yvonne take my one sentence, which I'm going to write for her, and then Yvonne's going to say it to me, and I fill in the blank. Or maybe this is easier if I say it this way. Yvonne, this is your sentence that I'm going to say to you. You know wellness by, and then Yvonne will just fill in the blank. So short answer. You know wellness by.
A feeling of ease.
Yeah, and so you know wellness by. Fill in the blank. Try to just say what comes up.
Okay. Happiness.
Yeah. So you can repeat yourself. You can say, I don't know. The idea is similar to the other sense in that. So this will be shorter, 2 minutes only per person. And I think it's because, Rob, you were host. That's why. I was co-host, so that's why I couldn't broadcast. So you're going to broadcast. So the idea is that you just fill in the blank, and it's kind of, giving you the sense, oh, I can know wellness like this. This is how I know wellness. So it helps you to both identify and rest in that. And maybe something new way of how you might know this comes up. So is that so write down for yourself what it is so that you can share it with your partner. And then your partner is going to say it by saying you, though, because I'm going to reflect it back to you so that you can fill in the blank. Is that clear? Or is that too confusing? Another might be here. Here are my samples. Another might be, I'll just put some of these in and then you can just use one of these, or if you didn't like my phrases, you can write something else. Right? You know wellness by. You are aware of patience when. You can access forgiveness for yourself when. Right? When you, not I. When you, not I. Okay. Is that clear? Do you guys have your sentences? We're going to put you in the same dyad because you already have built some intimacy. Thank you all. Welcome back. All right. Who would like to share the experience? And if you haven't spoken before, perhaps moving forward to do so. Not as pressure, just as an invitation. And if you have before, then you just give other people a little space. All right, Bernadette.
So, first of all, I want to say thank you to my partner because I didn't have a moment to say thank you. My experience was of just floating, a sense of flowing and movement, natural, relaxed, back and forth in the speaking and the listening. It was very, felt nutritive, nourishing between the two of us when she spoke or when I was speaking and felt listened to. It's very loving experience.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else? Open for everyone now. Okay, Anne Marie.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like such a precious connection. Just very kind of, yeah, rhythmic and peaceful, generative. And yeah, just I felt a sense of receiving when I was sharing and when she was sharing. And so, yeah, it was a nice flow. And thank you.
Thank you. And did anyone hear something that was surprising? I was curious.
I think I noticed for both of us that the repetition kind of makes you just go a little bit further than what you would just say if you were just answering once or even twice. And so it gets it just pulls a little bit more.
Thank you. Anouk, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Yes. I'd like to say that a bench night in a exercise for table tennis or tennis, when your coach send you back the ball every time and changing more and more, but gently. And at the end, toward the end, we are playing equal parts. So it was very nice. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right, Marianne.
I have to admit, I didn't completely understand the instructions. And so I was kind of winging it and had a little bit of a sense of, am I doing this right? I should search harder for the right word or something like that. And it was helpful when I just kind of just relaxed and didn't worry so much about like filling in the blank the right way or something.
Yeah. You know, so much of practice, we think wisdom is I have to know it. Like it's there for me to know. Like I have to go get it. When you, to me, what we practice is actually receiving. That's why so much of our practice is this kind of open awareness or resting in open awareness to let information reveal itself, not to go interpret. Because mostly we misinterpret a lot of time. Dogen, the founder of Soto Zen, has an expression that really works well with this, and he says, to think that you go forth and experience the myriad things is delusion. That the myriad things come forth and reveal themselves is awakening. I'll say it again. To think, and notice to think, to think, to think that you go forth and experience the myriad things is delusion. That the myriad things come forth and reveal themselves is awakening. It's useful, of course. So much of what we practice, we think we think, oh, I need to know the insights. My experience in retreat is the depth of the insight is what is actually the juiciness of retreat, because so much of the time the message is one I've heard before. It's not like I don't know it already. It's just I'm willing to say, this is important to me. This is significant to me. We're moving into significant here. This is what's significant. This is what I'm willing. This is why we have insight. And then, or at least this is my experience. I have insight, then I go, yes, I'm going to take it back into my life. I'm more committed to doing X, Y, Z to make this really be important in my life, significant in my life. I tell my students, nothing happened in a retreat. That doesn't happen otherwise. It's the same heart, same body, same mind. The container of practice offers us what happens when we get into the flow, or however you want to frame it, jhana, whatever it is. You want to mind concentration or mindfulness or the establishment of both, is that we are settled enough to let that information have the depth of importance, of meaning, right? Of significance. Or what is more significant than, the person still bugs you, but it's not so significant how they carry themselves, how they walk, or whatever. Your knees still hurt, but it's not so significant, right? Right? as the thing to struggle with. You just go, ah, okay. What's significant is I have clarity of awareness and I don't have to react. I know I have choice. I can be more skillful where I place my attention, how I go about this. Again, so much of practice in the years that I've practiced, it becomes much more about how do I approach my practice? Am I gentle with myself, with others? Am I kind? Do I bring mercy to this? Or am I just barreling through it? Gotta fix it, gotta know it, so I can annihilate it. You know, you're like, whoa. Right? It's the same thing with speech. How do we connect to it in a way? Right? And how we do that in essence, or in many ways, is we allow for the mirrored things, which could be your anger, the pain in your knee, you let it reveal itself. To me, how we make things more significant is we value what is being revealed to us. We bring value. The suffering of anger is like this. The dukkha of this pain in my knee is like this. In the beginning, you're just trying to I know so much of me is I'm trying to get rid of it, or I'm going to work on it so that I don't have it. Again, third and fourth day, well, yeah, sure, there's some ease that comes with concentration, but who hasn't had a retreat in which there's some pain throughout the day, be it physical or emotional? But at a certain point, we get to it. Sure, mindfulness, concentration helps us have this settledness to say, oh, it's significant, and how I respond to it is what's much more important than what do I need to do about it, or how do I get rid of it. So the paradox is we actually open up to what dukkha is, what ease is, what happiness is. So we open up to the mirrored things, be it car emotions or whatever's in here, sensations, thoughts, or what's out there, right? As being part of what's happening. So, like in the story, of course, the abbot decided what was significant. And so we need to learn to value our own significance. That's why we get friendly to anger. We get friendly to the story and all the emotions that go with it and the sensations. We practice opening up to letting information, letting descriptors reveal themselves. So the knowing becomes receiving. We don't need to go interpret so much, mostly because we have old ideas when we go to interpret. Mostly have old ideas. It's good to notice patterns, but it's also useful to have that open up, like it's like this and, right? So it's an and, it's not a but. We become more inclusive. Really, when you think about it, when do we relax? When we become more inclusive of what is. All right. I'm going to do one more brief exercise, which we're going to do deep listening again. Long hair folks will talk first, and you're just going to go in and you say, just right now, again, you're just sharing what's here right now. What's most important to you about speech as connection? What's important to you about speech, that's connection. So you go, you say, what's important to me about speech is connection is when, or whatever, but now you just speak freely. So 2 minutes each, long hair first, 3 breaths between or something, and then come on out. So Rob, let's give him 5 minutes so there's enough transition time. All right. Maybe we can, if you didn't have a chance like I didn't, you can just mute or unmute. Just thank your person. So thank you, Marianne. All right. Thank you. I'm noticing the time, and I do have a hard stop at 12 myself. A nun is coming to visit me. So I want to thank you very much for your participation today, your practice, your showing up. And it's always a pleasure to engage in the Dharma. I hope that anything that benefited you today, you'll carry with you and continue to practice it. Anything didn't land so well, I hope you can let it go. And I hope that you felt some connection today, and this has enriched your life and those, as you take it out, many others.